Hello, and welcome to our live webinar. We're calling this one The Relationship Edge, Turning Connections into Profitable Deals. My name is Hilary Graves. I am the managing partner of Bright Sound Investments. We help operate group investments in Charleston, South Carolina, Savannah, Georgia, and some other wonderful real estate markets around the country. And tonight I am joined by my friend and business partner, Sam Wells, who is an expert not only at underwriting, analyzing deals. I mean, she's amazing at that. She makes sure the numbers are right. But I think way more importantly, she is an expert at building relationships with members of her team. And as we're going to talk about today, with some key players when it comes to finding a deal and just facilitating all of that, getting everything in place and really making it work. And I honestly cannot think of a better person to speak on this topic than her. So, Sam, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, not thank you very much, Hillary, and thanks everybody for joining. It's a pleasure to be here. I am Sam Wells. I am with Lake City Equity. I am the director of acquisitions with my husband John Wells and our partner Iggy David Igowitz. Thrilled to be partners with Hillary in those great markets that she mentioned. And I have a background in business development, which I just consider developing relationships that has transpired over the last 15 or so years. And when I got the opportunity to do it in multifamily, it was like magic within the air. I could talk about it for days. I love it. And so super thrilled to be here with all you guys.
Perfect. So I guess it goes without saying that having strong relationship with your team at work um, makes all the difference, right? When it comes to productivity, building a strong business, all of that. But for Sam and myself, we're in the business of looking for undervalued or underperforming apartment buildings in most cases. And we're looking for ways to make them more profitable. And about a million things need to come together in just the right way for a potential investment property to become an actual opportunity that's worth offering to our investors. And we could probably tell you a story about how every single deal that we've ever found, whether it was large multifamily or even just, looking for a duplex or something like that, almost every single deal I can think of came through a relationship and either a strong relationship with a broker or a seller if I went direct to seller, and also with the bank or with a lender, and just to get it all in place or to even find out about the deal in the first place in some cases. If you've ever seen the spreadsheet that we use to analyze deals, I know some of you here are also syndicators like we are. So you know what it looks like. Like there are so many numbers, so much has to work on there, and obviously we have to see the right margin between our income and our expenses, or else the deal doesn't work. We probably analyze, I think, Sam, I heard you say like 180. I was going to say 150, but it's more like 180 something deals before finding one that actually works and is worth pursuing. But even getting the opportunity to offer on some of these assets is impossible unless we already have a great relationship with the broker or the seller. So I'm going to turn it over to Sam to talk about how she has built a level of trust and rapport in that area. And Sam, why don't you start with the broker relationship, if you don't mind, and how key that is, because I know you have some amazing examples of that.
Yes, happy to. And couldn't agree more with everything that you said. Every transaction, every great deal, and in any other business, it really comes from relationships, with the exception of, I think, one deal that came from a banking relationship that hopefully I'll have time to talk about later. Everything that we have purchased has been off market and it's been with a repeat broker. So it's not just one transaction and then we move on to the next broker. Of course, that happens at the beginning. You do one transaction, but then you do another one with them. It's been multiple transactions with the same broker. And, a good broker puts together the seller's needs with the buyer's wants. And if you find somebody who can kind of navigate that gray area, they do so much of the work for you. And the crucial thing about developing a relationship with a broker is that when you find something off market, and I'm not knocking on market deals, so do not hear me say that, but we have just had the I think the honor and kind of the benefit of just purchasing off market, and it's allowed us two different things at two different times. One, we possibly have a lower purchase price because the broker knows exactly what we're looking for and knows exactly where the seller is going to transact. So when it's sent to me, it's not going into a bidding war of, okay, the price was fair, this is what they wanted, but now there are 10 other buyers who are competing for that same deal. It's just me and the seller and a broker who wants to get the deal done. And then the second piece of that is that you're able to get a first look and kind of be the belle of the ball to opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't even know were transacting, because a lot of these sellers are not going to put their deals on Crexy or LoopNet and then do a mass, email out to everyone and do kind of the whole dog and pony show. So in multifamily in particular, you're getting more of a fair price historically, and you're getting access to opportunities that you would not have, otherwise. So, how to become a broker's go-to, the biggest thing, and this is in all relationships, of course, it's anything I'm going to say is not rocket science, right? It's just the basics, but it works. And that's what I think is the most important. It's trust, communication, and staying top of mind. And, how do you do those three things? Well, I think in order to build trust and in order to stay top of mind, you have to have clear communication. A broker really wants to know, can I take you seriously? Are you going to close? They do not get paid until a deal closes. So the most important thing to them is, am I bringing a serious buyer to the table? So in order to let them know that, it really starts with consistent communication. And I started with making phone calls. I would call 5 brokers a day. The most important piece of that is I would follow up with those brokers afterwards. So I usually do a 2-week cadence. But in between then, and again, guys, this sounds very simple, but there's a lot of people who are reaching out to brokers. How do you stand out? I would have a meaningful phone call, and then I would send in a handwritten letter to that broker. And as you know, if you walk out to your mailbox and you get a card that's been handwritten and hand addressed to you, it's so much more meaningful. That person could say the same thing and send it in a text message or send it in an email, and it does not have the impact that a simple handwritten letter that takes me 5 minutes to do, that has the impact. So I started with that. But the biggest thing is really letting them know what I'm looking for and what I'm not looking for, and giving that feedback very quickly. And as Hilary said, the first one we bought, we looked at 258 opportunities. And we were just talking prior to, it's been about 8 months since we've had something under contract and there's a deal upcoming, and it's taken about 183 opportunities that we've turned down. So a big piece of building the relationship and developing that trust is giving consistent feedback. If you have to give somebody 183 no's to get one deal, I was very fearful at the beginning that that was going to kind of count me out and not have me be taken seriously. But what really happened was the opposite. It really built the trust with the broker, and we have a clear buy box and clear what we're looking for. They know the area, they know the vintage, they know the unit count, they know kind of our business plan. And so they're not wasting their time sending us things that really don't pencil. And, a lot of things have changed. We've looked at so many deals because the debt market has changed and the multifamily market, has changed. But we've been given the beautiful opportunity of looking at 183 off-market deals. That really comes from building relationships. And it really all comes from maintaining that constant communication. And I said I had a 2-week cadence. Initially, I just used my Outlook calendar. I'd make a call on March 1st, and then I would put it in my calendar, March 14th. I need to follow up, with this broker. I then switched, of course, to Excel, and then now we have a more robust CRM. But you talk to a lot of people, and all of a sudden everything starts rolling. You're sent a deal from a couple of different brokers, and if you don't follow up and you don't build that trust, then you're not going to get the opportunity. And we've been very fortunate now with that relationship in place. Brokers will call me, they'll text me. And, I've had brokers, I have a very persistent personality and I can be somewhat impatient. The relationship with a broker can really save a deal. Thinking of one in particular, we closed at the end of 2023, and we had a relationship with the seller too, which is a whole nother topic, but is a great thing to have. And by if the broker were not involved, I would have messed that deal up because of my impatience. Like I would have pressured the seller a little bit too hard. I would have jumped the gun, and the broker kind of played that middleman part. The broker knows me very well at this point. So he's able to say, Sam, stand down. I am going to get the deal done. You have to give me 2 more weeks to let them meet with their CPA, that sort of thing. So they're worth their weight in gold. But they also are building the relationship with us, and they kind of know how we tick. And they know I'm impatient, the ones who I've really worked with, and so they're able to take that and use it to the good, but then are able to be honest with me, and that's what really can help get the deal done. But the other thing, people can kind of get hung up on a broker commission, and I will pay that commission every day. The example I'm just giving you, the deal falls apart without the broker. Why do I not want them to get paid? They look at 400 deals, for the 183 that I looked at, and at this point they'll send me mostly exactly what's in my buy box, and we have that relationship with the other, where you're getting to see deals that you would otherwise never be able to see. I'm going to jump into seller relationships, which is equally important, because whether or not a broker is involved in the process and you have a seller, or there is no broker at all and you're working directly with the seller, the relationship with the seller can really make or break a deal. Same thing with sellers, with brokers, with anybody, I think, in the world. Who do we want to do business with other than somebody who we know, like, and trust? So a deal gets rolling, and when you know the seller, you can avoid a lot of pitfalls that where you don't know the seller, you can kind of butt heads like this. And if something happens to your lending or something like that, a particular example for us, we had a deal under contract, and it was two separate deals, one closing, two separate sellers. And we had the privilege of building a relationship with the seller and with both of them. There were brokers involved on both sides, but it was right when interest rates started hiking. And at the very last day of our contract, the lending pulled out. I'll talk about lender relationships in a minute. That's a different story, but it is all, I mean, again, all these relationships are so important. But the lender pulled out on the very last day. Had we not have had the relationship in place with the seller, we would have lost all of our at-risk money. The deal would have fallen apart. That deal's in great shape now, but the seller had every right to say, hey, I really appreciate it, but now I don't want to sell. Or, Joe Smith offered me $200,000 more for this. And instead, we were able to sit down with them, walk through what our plan is, assure them that we would close. They knew us. They had that trust with us. And as a result, we ended up closing the deal 14 days later. It was very stressful, but if we didn't have that relationship in place, there's no way that deal gets done. And then without a broker too, when you're developing a relationship with a seller, we closed a deal in 2023. And honestly, my husband and I courted those sellers for probably 5 years. So the relationship with this, it was well worth the 5 years, but the relationship with the seller can take a lot longer to develop than a relationship with a broker. That cadence, I'm not following up with the seller every 2 weeks. It's maybe every month, maybe every other month. And then I am really trying to figure out how can I add value to that person. And not that I'm not with the broker, but it's a totally different relationship. And in that particular instance, the seller had brokers that called them, daily, but nobody really listened to what their problem was. And their problem, I welcome any and every day, is if we sell, what are we going to do with the money? Well, it was a perfect opportunity to go into seller financing. So they were able to carry the loan, but just have passive income coming in with the mortgage payment every single month. But it took, years of getting to know that person, developing the relationship, building the trust, with the same thing I talked about earlier, is just that, consistent communication, so that when they were ready to sell, one, they had somebody who heard what they were saying and could kind of solve their problem. And then two, they trusted us, they trusted the group, and they knew that we were going to execute, on what we said we would do. So the other thing is, relationships go both ways. So it's not just, okay, I want to build a relationship with the seller, but working on another deal, I have a relationship with that seller still. Obviously, we're paying the mortgage, but they're willing to give us a reference to another owner who would be considering seller financing, because they trust us. It's been such a great relationship, and they want to help us out too. It really goes both ways. So we would not, that deal is like the belle of the ball, a great area. If we did not take our time and handhold, that seller, there's absolutely no way that we would have been able to close that deal. And it really comes from same thing: handwritten note card, consistent communication, and staying top of mind. There's a lot of brokers that I like, but if I'm not in communication with them, and if they're not in communication with me, when they get that deal that comes across their desk, honestly, they're not thinking of me. I'd like to say I'm that important, but I'm really not. And it is a little bit different once you have done 5 transactions with somebody. Obviously they're going to think of you, but we're in constant communication. So it's really important, especially at the beginning when you're developing the relationship, that you talk to them on March 1st and they don't have a deal, but once you've sent that note card, then you talk to them again on March 14th, all of a sudden they've talked to a different seller and something has come along that, had you not have followed up with them, you would have never had access to that deal. And it's one thing I love about multifamily, is that you really have the opportunity to see opportunities you would never see if you just maintain and build the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to jump in because what you're saying also echoes with me with finding smaller deals too, smaller multifamily, which is where I started. And there's a lot of direct to seller in that world where you're sending out letters. I get these letters now, in my mailbox. Um, and when you can go direct to seller, it's a small mom and pop. And even in our world with the bigger group investments, you'll find mom and pop sellers. It's better negotiation power. The seller could be highly motivated, that maybe they're going through some financial distress or job relocation or divorce or something. You never know what's going on with them. But they might be more willing to accept a lower offer because their pain point is they really just want to get rid of this property. You can get customized offers sometimes, just knowing their needs, fast sale, higher price, seller financing, and sometimes a faster closing too. So, yeah, seller relationship is like paramount. But let's talk about the lender relationship and how like a strong connection with lenders can also kind of unlock like better financing options.
Absolutely. Everybody is very focused on purchase price, and as we should be, but lending can really make or break a deal. And then having the confidence in your lender to execute on what they say, they're going to do. And not only what they say they're going to do, but come in a little bit better than you expect and not a little bit worse, is huge and makes all the difference, in the world. We have had, really, it's a good experience in having things fall apart at times, so you get the understanding of what you really don't want, and how, again, it all comes back to communication. The deal I mentioned that, lending pulled out the last minute, some things were very out of their control. Nobody, knew the rate hikes and all were going to happen, but the communication is really what was lacking. And so that's really what we sought uh, we give it, and so we look to receive it also. It makes, again, the relationship is a two-way street. So we have found, and I'll give you the example first, kind of on how this happened. We had a deal in Savannah. It was a great purchase price, but it was 60% occupied. It did not cash flow from day one, but it was an opportunity. But really, the lending is what continued to be the hang up in the deal. So it took literally a year of, submitting LOIs and trying to, kind of push it forward. But our lending was always just kind of topsy turvy. And I connected with a lender, and he gave me a fixed rate bridge debt option. And it made so much sense to the deal. He thought of and looked at the deal as a lender, but spoke to me as a buyer and talked to me about areas where we could tweak this, we could tweak that. You'll get a little bit higher leverage. Your spread will be a little bit lower. Not to get into the weeds, but he really looked at it from a lender's eyes, but communicated it to us in a way that made sense where we could kind of change some things. And as a result, we closed on that deal. We've since refinanced that. We gave investors back, some of their capital. It's cash flowing great, and we would have never have purchased it without that lender. He has closed I think our last like 5 deals. And he has relationships with bridge debt, with banks, with credit unions, with agencies. I mean, all across the board. So he can go out and know, okay, who is this really the best fit for, and then bring us back the 3 best options, and we can see what makes the most sense. And he knows exactly, our story and situation and what we're looking for. And we know every time he brings us something, it's going to come in a little bit better than what he's saying. It's not going to come in worse, which is the last thing you want when you're at the closing table. So those relationships are paramount. The other thing, we have a relationship with a local bank, and it's the same story I'm saying about relationships. When you find someone like that who truly is relationship oriented and not transactional, they financed, I think, 3 of our deals now. And on a personal note, we just moved, and they financed our house because of the trust that we've developed, and because we've seen them really execute. So when you find relationships like that, you can pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. You can be honest with them, and you can talk it through, and it makes all the difference for getting the deal done at the closing table. But then even after the deal has closed, how does that process look? Because I really get the glory in finding the deal, but when you close the deal, what happens? And you're still working with the lenders, you're still working with brokers. Prime example, we had a hurricane come through in Savannah, and we were able to reach back out to the seller and say, hey, we need the roof warranties on X, Y, and Z. And, that was 8 months after we've closed. You've got a relationship with someone, you're able to look and see, you're able to still continue the dialogue and the transaction process after the deal closes. And lastly, I would say this is more on brokers, but and lenders and sellers, the follow-up game and continuing. We purchase a deal, we'll send a thank you note, we'll send a closing gift, but we also update on how the deal is going throughout. I'll send pictures of painting the exterior. We increase the rent to this amount. We just refinance this one. Thank you again so much for your help in getting it closed, because it's meant the world to us. And all of that just kind of continues to build and foster the relationships that's going to lead to more opportunities.
Beautiful. I want to wrap it up. I think that was awesome. What we've already covered here, just relationship, not rocket science. And really just to conclude, relationships with every member of the team, not just what we were talking about, finding deals, but our property managers and your employees will be motivated to do their best work. Everyone on your team will be motivated to do their best work, even your attorneys, your CPAs, your limited partners, every stakeholder, when they feel valued and respected and heard. And Everyone plays an important role in keeping the deal alive and keeping it going. You know, it's a marriage. We talk about this when we're learning to build a multifamily team that first you date and then you get married. Um, the marriage is really 5 years, 7 years, sometimes even longer. And so you want to start with a really good foundation, keep open communication, just like you would in any well functioning relationship. And yeah, persistent, being a good human. That's really it. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We hope you learned something tonight. Feel free to reach out to either one of us. You can find me, Hilary, with one L at brightsoundinvestments.com. And Sam, where can we find you?
LakeCityEquity.com or Sam at LakeCityEquity.com.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Th-
Have a great night.
Thank y'all very much.